I've never had an orgasm with a man before in my entire life. Due to my trauma and my experience with hypersexuality, I had become physically numb. Sex was nothing more than a performance, an act, a means to an end. My trauma and my hypersexuality had made me so disconnected from my body that I wasn't even in the moment. I was just acting, too busy focused on, am I arched right? Am I moaning enough? Do I look good? Are my facial expressions right? Am I riding correctly? It was all just an act. Temporary satisfaction for momentary gratification. Telling myself I had soul ties with these men when in actuality I just had codependency issues and low self-esteem that wouldn't allow me to let go of something that wasn't benefiting me.
I can relate to this because of how I grew up, and someone was violating me when I was a young girl. And I was led to believe that all women were good for was sex, right? And so for a long time I believed that. And when I was a teenager, I used to be like the only girl that was hanging out with like a group of guys. And no, I wasn't sleeping with those guys, but there would be other guys that I would sleep with. And I remember I used to always feel like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do with him. I'm supposed to make it easy for him. I wasn't thinking when the girls would call me a hoe or when people would make fun of me for being a freak, that I wasn't supposed to be doing this, because again, I was taught that that's what I was supposed to be doing, right? But I never felt like some type of connection to these guys for that reason. Meaning my connection to them had nothing to do with the act of sex. It had more to do with what it was that I was doing outside of that with them. There's a difference between knowing that hypersexuality is wrong versus believing that hypersexuality is what you are supposed to be doing. And when you are raised to believe that that's what you're supposed to be doing, you behave towards the opposite sex very differently. And what's unfortunate to me is that the women in my life did not try to figure out what was going on with me. They just made me feel bad about myself, and I could never understand it. I was always like in a place of confusion with it. And it wasn't until I got like significantly older, when I started feeling comfortable with my sexuality, I began to realize that I didn't even really like sex like that. Like it wasn't even that deep. I've been celibate for the past 7 years, right? And I practiced celibacy majority of my adult life. But I was polyamorous for 2 years. And let me tell you, it is not that deep now. There's some women out there that will stay with a guy because the sex is good. And for me, it's like the sex can be bad and I'll still stay with the guy because the reason why I'm with him has nothing to do with that. And that kind of presents a problem because a lot of guys, the only reason why they're with a woman is because of sex. So at the end of the day, I be thinking, when I was younger and I was being violated by men, older men, and they were telling me that women were only good for sex, were they just telling me the truth? I asked my father. The last time I saw my father, I was like 6 years old. I ran into him again in my late 20s, and I asked him, what would I have to do to be a good wife to my husband? And this man said, all I would have to do is shut the fuck up and give him some